So today is our last day in this training, which I hope it was and it is beneficial for you and you find it interesting. And today we'll discuss our last methods that we can, the last method in this training to be used when we want to study the impact of specific program or training or medicine, as we said in the health literature, on a specific outcome of interest. And to overcome the fact that we don't have a random sample, we saw last week that we can use the PSM method to trying to match those who are benefiting from the program with those who are not benefiting from the program, trying to explain the difference between the outcome of interest between the two groups, and the match is mainly based on observable characteristics. But as we said also last time, this is one of the caveats of the problem of this PSM method, because sometimes the fact of being selected into a specific program is not only based on observed characteristics. Sometimes it's based on unobserved characteristics that we cannot measure. However, it would affect the fact of being selected into this program or benefiting from this program. So difference in difference method allow us to overcome this this caveat or this problem by taking into consideration observable and non-observable characteristics. So let's first discuss the intuition behind the PSM, behind the difference in different methods. So assume that we have, so I will take the same example, Takaful and Karama program. So before 2015, let's say here this was in, let's assume this into, this, for instance, 2013, and this 2018. So we have the time before the implementation of the program and after the implementation of the program. And here we have a given outcome of interest. I will assume that it is, for instance, expenditure per capita of the households, or as we said last time, a measurement of women empowerment, or the children nutrition status. So whatever your variable or outcome of interest, the treatment group, those who benefited from the Takaful and Karama and those who didn't benefit from Takaful and Karama, both in 2013 had a given level of outcome of this outcome of interest. Without the implementation of the program, both, the outcome of interest for the comparison group will increase over time, and the outcome of interest of the treated group also will increase over time. So we assume that we have parallel trend, that the variable of interest will change over time. Here I'm talking about expenditure per capita, so assume it will increase over time. Between 2013 and 2018, all households would have higher expenditure per capita, for instance. Or if their children are suffering from anemia, this will decrease over time. So in general, we have like parallel trend if there is no treatment, if there is no Takaful and Karama. But because of Takaful and Karama, you notice that the treated group will not be parallel to the counterfactual group or to the comparison group, but it would increase. It will, for instance, the expenditure per capita, instead of increasing from point A to point B for the treated group, it would increase from point A to point C. And this difference between C and B is related to the fact that these individuals had been treated. So again, the intuition that without treatment, without any program, without any intervention, we suppose that outcomes of the treated groups and the comparison groups have equal trends, and it will change over time the same way. It would increase, it would decrease. But because of the treatment, in our case, for instance, because of Takaful program, the outcome, the expenditure or the income of the individuals who had been treated, who benefit from Takaful, would not increase from A to B, but it would increase from A to C. And this change is due to, this difference is due to the treatment effect or of being one of the beneficiaries of Takaful program. So this is the intuition behind difference in difference. And you see here that we have very important dimensions that was not tackled or was not considered when we're talking about PSM is time. So we compare the situation of these groups before the implementation of the program and after the implementation of the program. The second question. Saeed, I will answer this question at the end of this lecture, because usually we use difference in difference in time. So we observe the same individuals over time, but we'll see at the end that we can use it also if we have cross-sectional data, and we'll be comparing between two villages or two governorates. But for now, I mean, and the most common used data set when we want to use the difference in difference method is the time or having panel data, that we are observing individuals over time. Thank you. Okay, so as we said, that we assume that without the treatment, there will be equal trends. So this blue line for the comparison group and the dashed blue line is what's supposed to happen if there was no treatment for the individuals. However, maybe in fact, the real impact or the true counterfactual is the red dashed line. So you can see that without treatment, I suppose that households who benefited from takaful, their income would increase from point A to point B. Okay, but what I observed that they increase from point A to point C. So I conclude that the difference between B and C is the impact or the treatment effect of being benefit member of takaful. However, maybe this large difference between C and D is biased, because so this is the blue dashed line is the estimated counterfactual, while the true counterfactual is the red dashed line. So the treatment effect is much lower, if I will call this point Z. So the treatment effect is much lower, is the difference between Z and C, while the what I estimated is the difference between B and C. And the fact that I may assume that households who benefited from takaful their income would increase from A to B, while because of some unobserved characteristics, in addition to the observed characteristics, even without the program, even without the cash transfer, their income would increase more than the increase in the income of the comparison group. So to control for this bias, we need to be sure that our estimated counterfactual is as close as possible from the true counterfactual. And for this, we have to take into consideration observed and non-observed characteristics to be sure that we have good estimates. Okay, so this is the intuition behind the idea of difference in difference. Any question? Okay, so we have very important identification assumptions. Okay, so we have the conditional exogenality of treatment. Sorry, I'm reading the question. That we assume that treatment or placement into the program, the fact that given household is benefiting from takaful and the other household is not benefiting on takaful, the conditional exogenality told me, this assumption said that it does not depend, the fact of being selected to benefit from takaful, it does not depend on an observable characteristic. Okay, so the selection is based on observed characteristic. The observed characteristic we can control for, and it's also affects the outcome of interest. So if this is the case, if this assumption is verified, we can use PSM as we said. However, this is not really applied. I mean, this is a very strong assumption. So we have a weaker assumption. This assumption assumes that the fact of being treated or selected into a specific program is affected or depends on unobservable characteristics that I cannot observe. And here, and this is what we call conditional exogenality of treatment to changes in outcome over time. And in this case, we will assume that we have two types of unobservables. We'll have some unobservables that cannot change over time. They are constant over time, and other unobserved characteristics that are varying over time. So again, the strong assumption is that the fact of being selected into the program is exogenous and not affected by any unobservable characteristic of the beneficiary of women who are benefiting from takaful, of any household who are benefiting from any program like migration, for instance, that we discussed last time. However, this is not always the case. So we have this weaker assumption, which is the conditional exogeneity of treatment to changes into outcome, where we assume that we have unobserved characteristic. These unobservable characteristics affect the selection into the program or the fact of being treated. However, we'll distinguish between two types of unobservables. Things that I cannot observe but also will not change over time, and things that will be I cannot observe but can change over time. And under this assumption, we'll assume that the selection is based on unobservables but that are time invariant. That I will assume that this unobservable characteristics that I have, it's the same in 2013 and it's the same in 2018. It may affect or it may explain or affect the fact of being selected or treated into the program. So I want to consider this, but I will not be able to consider it if it's changing over time. So again, the weaker assumption says that we can take into consideration the unobservable characteristics, but we'll focus on the unobservable characteristics that are time invariant. And we'll assume that all unobservable characteristics that are time varying, that change over time, are not affecting the selection into the program. So it's kind of a weak assumption, and in any case, will not be. I mean, when we include the time dimension, we can control for the unobservable characteristics that are time invariant, but we cannot control for the unobservable characteristics that are varying over time. So for now, we'll assume that we'll consider this observable characteristics and unobservable characteristics that are time invariant. Okay, so if we have the conditional exogeneity of treatment, if we have the strong assumption where all the characteristics are not affected by unobservable, all what we have to find to determine the impact of a specific program is to compare the outcome of a treated individual or treated group and the control group at one point in time, as we did before. So I will control only for observable characteristics. I will compare the outcome of the treated group with the outcome of the untreated group, and I don't need to consider the unobservable characteristics. And this is what we call first difference approach. Or I can compare for the same individual, I can compare its outcome before the treatment and after the treatment, without if I have the time series or if I have the time dimension. This is the difference approach. So in other words, I would say so I want to differentiate between the outcome of the treated individual at period 1 minus the outcome of the treated individual at point 0. 1 is the time after the implementation of the program, 0 is the time before the implementation of the program. And Y is my outcome of interest. So if I am talking about change in income due to takaful program, so maybe Y1 would be the outcome of the individuals who had benefited from takaful at 2013 minus the outcome of the individuals who benefited from takaful. Sorry, 1 would be after the implementation, so in 2018 or 2019, and Y0 is at the period of 2013. Okay, and if we assume that the counterfactual expectations or what would happen to the counterfactual or the control group would not change over time, and there is no difference, so we'd expect we can say that the expected value of the outcome of the control group in 2018, the year after the implementation, minus the outcome income of interest at 2013, the period after the implementation, is 0. And in this case, as we said, we'll make simply difference in difference. First difference. I will compare the outcome of the treated after the implementation with the outcome of interest before the implementation. Okay, but as we said, this is not this strong assumption is not verified, And we need to assume that we have the weaker assumption, which is the exogenality of treatment to changes in outcome. So we'll assume that selection into the program is affected by the unobserved characteristics that are invariant in time, that do not change in time. And in this case, we need to compare the difference from before and after between the treatment group and the difference group. So I will have two differences, and this is why we call it difference in difference or second difference approach. I will compare the outcome of the treated before and after the implementation of the program. I will compare the outcome of the non-treated or the control group before and after the implementation of the program. Then I will compare these two differences, okay? And again, this method assumes that the bias selection, the bias that I want to take into consideration to be sure that I have the unbiased impact of this program, is based on observed characteristics and unobserved characteristics that are time invariant. So as I said, in this case, what we call the difference in difference include two differences. The first difference is the difference in outcome of the treated before minus after the implementation of the program, and the difference in the between the outcome of interest of the control group after and before the implementation of the program. If our strong assumption is verified, in this case, this term will be equal to 0 and will not have any problem. If we have the strong assumption and unobserved characteristics are not affected, we will exclude this term. And in this case, our estimator or our impact of the program will only be the difference between outcome of interest of households at period after the implementation minus before the implementation, okay? But this is not true. This difference is not equal to 0, so we cannot simply use the first difference. So here I am just giving simple example to, just to be sure that we are all on the same page and we have clear idea. So I have two groups, the treated groups and the control group. My outcome of interest of the treated group before treatment is A, and the outcome of interest of the control group before treatment is C. After treatment, so again, I will assume this in 2012, for instance, and this in 2019. Before the implementation of takaful, in 2019, the outcome of interest of the treated group is B, and the outcome of interest of the control group is D. So I have to calculate two differences. The first difference is B minus A, the difference in outcome for the treated groups. And the second difference is the difference in outcomes of the control group. Then I will calculate the difference between these two differences. And this will give me this DD will give us the estimate of the treatment, of the impact of the treatment on the outcome of interest, which is supposed to be unbiased because we controlled for the unobserved characteristic time invariant and the observed characteristics in the same time. Okay, so how to do this? This is the intuition, or this is the logic behind how to do this. What is the regression approach we can apply? So the first step we do, we will regress our outcome of interest, the variable Y. As we said, it can be income, decision power of women, children education status, children nutrition status, whatever. I will regress it on the treatment status if the individual at period 1, which means the period after the implementation of the program, is treated or not. I will include a time dummy equals 1 for the period after the implementation, 0 otherwise, and an interaction variable between the two variables. So it will take this form. YIT, our outcome of interest for individual I at period T, equal alpha, our constant term, plus gamma TI1, as we said, it equals 1 if the individual is treated in 2019, 0 otherwise. And keep in mind that TI0 is 0 by definition. All individuals who had not been treated, the capital T is equal 0 at, all the individuals treated or not treated, their capital T equal 0 at period 0. In 2012, no one in Egypt benefited from takaful. There was no takaful program. So T capital, which is the treatment status for individual I at period 0 in 2012 in our example equals 0. No one benefit from the program at this period. And we have the time dummy, as we said, 1 for the period or the time after the treatment and 0 otherwise before the treatment. And we will construct an interaction term between the treatment and the time. And we have our error term. What is the question? I will talk about this, Sharaf, in 5 or 6 slides. What are the several characteristics that can be observed and non-observed? Okay. Sorry. So this is our regression approach that will allow us to measure the impact of a given program on a given outcome, take into consideration the observable characteristics and the unobserved characteristics that are time invariant. And keep in mind that till now we didn't include any regressors. We didn't include any other observable characteristics that we, like the ones we used in the PSM. So let me ask you a question before moving to the next slide. According to you, what would be the coefficient reflecting the impact of being treated or not, or the impact of takaful, let's say it this way, on our outcome of interest, say is income?
The variable with the interaction.
The variable with the interaction. Anyone has other suggestion? The interaction term, exactly, the coefficient of the interaction term. Sharaf, okay, said also this. Any other suggestion? Okay, so let's see why you decided that is the coefficient of the interaction. So this is our regression approach. What we have in mind is that I want to compare between the outcome of the difference in outcomes of interest of the treated group before and after, and the difference is the outcome of interest of the control group before and after, and the difference between both. So let's see how we can interpret this in terms of this regression approach or in terms of this equation. I want you to calculate what is the expected outcome of the individual I at period 0 before the implementation of the treatment if the person is not treated. So again, this is our regression. I want you to calculate what would be the expected outcome of interest for an individual who is not benefiting from takaful program at period 0, which is 2012.
Professor.
Yes, sir.
It will be treatment T for non-treated, which will be which we will hide it from the equation. Mm-hmm. Big T will hide it from equation, and T for the time, it will be 0, and we will hide it also. We have only for alpha and beta.
Okay, so only alpha. So according to you, this T would disappear from yes. the equation, and this T will disappear from the equation.
Because 0 and 0.
Yes, but if this is 0 and this is 0, so the interaction is 0 as well.
Yes.
So because we want to calculate the expected value of an individual I at period 1, when this individual is not treated at period 1, and I want to calculate at period 0, sorry, this should be, this is a typo, this should be 0. So I want to calculate the estimated outcome of interest of the individual I at period 0, knowing that this individual had not been treated. So as you saw from the previous equation, so this TI1 equals 0 because the individual is not treated. Because I want to calculate it at point T equals 0 in 2012, so the time variable equals 0 as well. And if this 0 and this 0, the interaction term will be 0 as well. So as Najia said and as Sharafuddin said, the expected outcome of an individual who is not benefiting from the program at period 0 equal to alpha. Okay, now I want you to calculate what would be the expected outcome of an individual I after treatment, after the implementation of takaful, if the person is not treated. And please, I want someone else than Sharafuddin. Sharafuddin is doing hard work and is answering all my questions. So please, I want to hear other voices or send me other your answers in the chat box. But just I want to be sure that you are all here with me and you are following. So what is the expected outcome of an individual I? A woman who is benefiting from takaful, sorry, a woman is not benefiting from takaful as a period 2018.
Racha, can you just show us the equation once more?
Yes, sure. Here.
It's for someone who's not treated at period 2, right?
Yes, so I want to calculate the expected outcome in period 2, so in 2019 in our example, but she is not treated in period 2.
Okay, so there is the alpha, and TI is equal to 0 because she's not treated. The delta is equal to 1, so we have delta. Is that delta or? Yes. And,
yes, it's delta.
And we have the interaction is 0, so it's alpha and delta, if I'm correct.
Exactly. So as Nora said, TI1 will equal 0 because she is not treated. Small t for time equals 1 because we are talking at period 2019, and the interaction term will be 0 by 1 equal to 0. So the expected outcome of an individual who is not treated in 2019 and the expected outcome in 2019, as Nora, Aline, Najia, and Raja said, it would be alpha plus delta. Okay. So if I want you to calculate the expected outcome of this woman who is not treated, but her income changed over time, no? I mean, her income, expected income at period 0 was alpha, and at period 1 is alpha plus delta. So what would be the change in her outcome over time without being treated by the program would be what exactly? Exactly, Nora, delta. So, yes, Umayma.
It will be the difference.
Yes, Mohab. Yes, it will be the difference, exactly. As you all said, it would be in 2012, her outcome was alpha. In 2019, her outcome is alpha plus delta. So there is this delta that is only related to the fact that we moved from 2012 to 2019 without being affected or treated by the program. Okay, now I want to know what would be the expected outcome of an individual I who had been treated by takaful, but what is her expected outcome before that treatment? So a woman who is beneficiary from takaful, I want to know what would be her expected outcome in 2012. And here again is the equation.
Before the treatment, it's still alpha since there is no treatment yet.
Okay, but she is treated. She had been treated.
But you said that at the base time.
Before, yes, before the implementation.
Yes, so let me say it again. I want her income before the implementation of the program, taken into account that she will be treated by the program.
Oh, if she will be treated, so it's going to be alpha plus gamma, that's it. The coefficient beside the I1 is gamma, alpha plus gamma.
Yes, is gamma, exactly. So as Maya said, T capital I1 will be 1 because I know she is treated after the implementation of the program. Small t for time is 0 because we are talking about the period 2012 before the implementation of the program. The interaction term is 0 because we have 0 by 1. So the expected outcome of an individual who had been treated, who will be treated after 2014 or 2015, but what would be her income in 2012 is alpha plus gamma. So as Saeed, Aline, Amal, as you said, is the alpha plus gamma. Okay, now my last question, what would be the outcome of this same woman who had been treated by, who will be treated by takaful, but in 2018 and not in 2012? What will be her expected outcome?
In this case, we will have also the impact of time. So all the coefficient, alpha, gamma, delta, and the last one, I don't remember.
Okay, exactly. So for the treatment, it equals 1 because we know she is treated. For the time period, it will be 1 because we want to calculate her expected outcome after the implementation of the program. So it will be 1, and if T capital is 1, T small is 1, the interaction between both is 1. So the expected outcome, I'm sorry, this type, I have to change to expected YIT. I forgot to write it. So the expected outcome in this case would be alpha plus gamma plus delta plus beta.
Racha, I'm sorry, I thought you said that at the first period, everyone is equal to, so the status of the treatment, because the program hadn't existed before. So everyone, the treatment status, capital T, is equal to 0 by definition.
No, the capital T, Nora, I0 is equal to 0 for everyone.
Exactly. So in 2012, which means before the treatment, even the person who will be treated in the future will have, I mean, do we substitute here the TI1 for the TI0 in the period before the treatment or not?
No, TI1 is constant. Not constant. I mean, the sub-index 1 is constant. I'm not included TI0 at all because I know it is 0 for everyone. What I'm including in my regression is TI1, which can equal 1 if the individual is treated or equal 0 if the individual is not treated.
And even before the start of the program, for the people who will be treated in the future, you will include the TI1.
Yes, yes. So in the regression, TI1 is always here. Okay, because it can be 1 if the individual is treated or 0 if the individual is not treated. What I am so this is for everyone, treated or not treated. What I am excluding from my regression as a variable is the TI0 because I know that TI0 is 0 for everyone.
But if you are calculating the outcome before the start of the program.
Yes, I understand your point.
Put TI1 equal to 1 because this person is going to be the treated person. So
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So even if I'm treating the expected outcome before the implementation of the program, but there is this variable that equal 1 if they will be treated or 0 if they are not treated. So if they will be treated in the future, I will put it 1. If not, I will put it 0. Even if I'm calculating the outcome of the period before. I don't know if it's clear or not.
Yes, and what is the interpretation of gamma in real terms now? I mean, because we are trying to find a control group for the treated group where the outcome is as close as possible. So how is this difference explained before the treatment? Why is there a difference in the outcome between both groups equal to gamma?
I don't get your point.
Can you move one slide further?
So
now
here,
we have,
yes.
The expected value of the outcome is alpha for the untreated persons before the treatment, and for the treated persons before the treatment is alpha plus gamma.
Because so this is exactly this.
I mean, just the economic interpretation of it. I get the mathematical.
The difference between both is related to the fact that these two individuals were not the same from the beginning. I mean, for instance, if I will be selected for the program and you will not be selected to the program, even in period 0 before the implementation of the program, there is a difference between our income, both of us. Otherwise, we should have been both selected or not selected into the program.
So the gamma explains
that even, I mean, this one and this one, even without the implementation of the program, there is a difference in outcome between the individuals in period 2012. If I want to show it to you in the, well, let me show you.
So this is the difference between both slopes, not slopes.
Yes,
both
the 2 points. There's 2 points. So even before the implementation, both groups are different. Someone will have more characteristics, observed or unobserved, that will make them participate in the program and other ones no.
So were we not supposed actually to choose a comparison group that have more or less the same characteristics, or that should have been selected into the group, into the treatment?
For now, we are not trying to match.
Okay.
What you're saying is right for the PSM. For the difference, we are not matching.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yes. In fact, what you are saying, this is what we will do when we will apply the difference and PSM in the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we will have first to match for those who have close characteristics and then compare between them. But what we are doing now, we are trying to see, I had 10 individuals in 2012. I know some of them will be selected and others not. So I want to see the difference in their outcome over time and compare between both.
Okay.
So the difference between YI0 if she is not treated and YI1 if she's not treated in 2012 before the implementation, this is because there is difference in outcome in general between those individuals.
Yes.
So we'd expect, for instance, that gamma would be negative, because I would expect that the income of those who will not be selected into the program supposed to be higher than those who will be selected into the program.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But we are not trying to match for now. I'm just trying to see there is change over time. If this change over time is the same for both selected and non-selected or not.
Yes,
okay?
It's clear. Thank you.
It's clear now. So again, the difference, the alpha and alpha plus gamma is the difference in outcome between the treated and non-treated at period 0 in 2012 before the implementation of the program. The difference between alpha plus delta and alpha plus delta plus gamma plus beta, this is the difference between the outcome of the treated and non-treated at period 1. Okay, so this I am comparing between those who benefited from takaful and those who didn't benefit from takaful in 2019, and I'm comparing between those who benefit from takaful and those who didn't benefit from takaful in 2012. But the difference between this one, I will call it 1, and this one, the difference in outcome of the individuals who had not been treated, who will not be treated by takaful in period 1 and in period 0, shows us what? Shows us the change over time, simply over time. I was alpha in 2012 and I became alpha plus delta in 2019. And the difference between 3 and 4 is also the change over time of the outcome of interest, but for individuals who I know that they will be treated in the future. So if I subtract this one from this one, delta plus beta shows me the change in the outcome, in the income of a woman who benefited from takaful between 2012 and 2019. I don't know if it's clear or all is confused.
Yes, it's clear.
It's clear? Perfect. Okay. So now, if you remember, so what I wanted to do, if I come back to my table, so now I have the outcome before the treatment and the outcome after the treatment for both groups. I calculate the difference between the 2 periods for both groups, and then I calculate the difference in this difference. So if I want to interpret this in terms of coefficients, I want the expected value or difference between the outcome of treated before, after, and before is beta plus delta, as you said, and the difference in outcome between those who are controlled. Sorry, I don't know. I forgot a lot of indices. So this is for those who are not in period. Second. So this is the outcome of the control group at period 0. So this first difference is beta plus delta. This second difference is delta, and the difference between the difference in this difference give me beta. So if I have this regression, the one that we show that I regress the outcome of interest on the treatment effect and the time dummy and the interaction between both, my coefficient of interest, the coefficient that will show me if there is significant positive or negative impact of the treatment on my outcome variable of interest, is beta. So this is the coefficient of interest, okay? And this gives me, as I said, the average treatment on treated. So I can say if it's positive significant, we can conclude that takaful has positive significant impact on the outcome, on the income of women. If it's not significant, so I can conclude that there is no significant effect of takaful on income of women. Is it clear? Okay, so in this regression, if you remember, we didn't include any x's. So I'm just assuming here, without including any covariates or any other observable characteristics, that my outcome of interest, my income, for instance, is affected only by time. It will change in any case because of time, and it will change also because I am benefiting from takaful or not. While we have other observable characteristics that may affect my outcome of interest. My income, it increase over time. Yes, it would increase if I am benefiting from takaful, but it will also differ according to my education, to my employment status, to my sex, to my geographical location, to my household size. So it's good to be sure that we are really controlling for observable and non-observable characteristics to include covariates. We have to introduce covariates in my difference in difference estimation. So I will regress my outcome of interest, for instance, my income, on the treatment effect, which will equal 1 if the individual is treated in the future, 0 otherwise, the time dummy, interaction between both, and a set of specific characteristics. So XITG is for each XG is given characteristic for individual I at period T. So it can be age, it can be sex, it can be employment status, it can be geographical location, it can be several things. But again, if I want to conclude what is the impact of takaful on my outcome of interest, it would be simply this coefficient, the coefficient of interaction between the time and the treatment binary variables. Okay?
Sorry, please.
Sure,
since we're interested in differences, and there is some covariate that do not vary over time as sex, for example, gender, or doesn't it disappear from the equation?
Yes, in fact, exactly. This is what I will talk about. It for those who are not changing over time, it will disappear, and this means that it will not. I mean, this is what we want to control for, that those who are invariant over time, observed or unobserved, will be taken to control by the first difference. But if there is any change for any other variables like employment status or age, for instance, or number of children, this would appear in the, how to say it, in the coefficient will appear. But for, as you said, for sex, for instance, will not be, it will, if not changed, so it will not have an impact on outcome.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll talk about it, that even observe the characteristics, those who are invariant over time, it will be 0 if we're talking about difference in difference, but it will not, those who are varying over time, it will appear. Okay, and I will talk about it in data. Pay attention, because sometimes there are some variables, I mean, you need to check this in your data set, that some variables as sex, for instance, it will change this because of typo. Or for instance, you will find the person who are changing sex or are changing year of birth, for instance, from one year to another year. This would be an error or type. So you need to be sure that the variables you are including in your regression are correct in the data set. If they are really time invariant, it will stay time invariant, and if it may change over time. So this is one of the errors that may affect your results. So you have to pay attention for this. And if you wanted to see, so from betas, we can conclude that I have significant effect of takaful, for instance, on income. but maybe this effect is heterogeneous among women. So overall, on average, women who benefited from takaful, they may have a higher income, or let's say they may have a higher decision power. So let's take this example. If Y is an indicator of women's decision power inside the household, and the interaction term shows me the impact of takaful on the decision power of women inside the household, but maybe this positive effect would change between women based on their education level. So women who are, I don't know, have secondary or preparatory education who benefited from takaful will have higher decision power compared to another woman who is illiterate who benefits from takaful as well. So if we want to control for this heterogeneous effect, that even the positive impact of the treatment would differ based on the characteristics of the individuals, the observed characteristics, you can do an interaction term between T, the treatment status, and the interaction between the treatment and the time, and also education level, to be sure that to control for this heterogeneous effect. If you don't do it, if you don't include the interaction with the covariates X's, you will only have, on average, the impact of the program on all women who benefiting or not from this program.
Professor.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Professor,
Yes,
for the beta, we will control only for unobservable characteristics, which are time invariant, not time variant.
Okay, so beta shows you the impact of the program on the outcome, and controlling for the observed characteristics and the unobserved characteristics that are time invariant.
But like for propensity, when we control for observables, we have a lot of characteristics which are observables that we can control. Here, we can control also the observables, but they are time invariant.
Yes.
For example, for time invariant, but are observables.
I'm not sure I got your point, but if there is variable observed who is that is invariant over time, it will not be the main cause of change in your outcome. I was woman in 2012 and I am still woman in 2019, so I cannot say that being a woman is the main cause behind my increasing income.
And right? for beta, if in a practical way, for beta, we have takaful and karama. For beta, it will capture the impact of the program, but it will control what? The heterogeneity, which for the it will control for unobservables characteristics only.
No, but we are including as well the X's variables. So we are controlling for the observed characteristics and the unobserved characteristics that are time invariant. The fact is that I am taking the difference in difference. It means that I am controlling for characteristics that I cannot observe, did not change over time, but may affect my outcome.
Like, for example?
I don't know. I mean, something that you cannot observe in 2012 and 2019. Maybe I have a specific. I don't know. I am so smart, or I have. For instance, I have a good way to deal with individuals that my income would increase because I am working in the customer services. I have this talent of dealing with individuals. This is something that is not observed. We cannot really control for, and it's not changing over time. If I am good with individuals today, I'm supposed to be good with individuals in 10 years. And this is something unobserved, you cannot control for. But when you control for time, you are controlling for this. So something related to the how to say, I don't want to say skills, but because skills we can, some skills we can measure. But I mean anything that you cannot observe in my individual as a person that would affect my outcome. It can affect my income. Maybe I am faster. I I would prepare the slides in 1 hour. Someone would prepare the same slides in 4 hours. Another one would prepare it in 15 minutes. So maybe the 3 persons have the same observable characteristics, but have some unobservable characteristics that make someone, let's say it in French, plus doué in preparing the slides, have more talent or are faster in preparing the slides compared to other ones.
Yes, yes, I understand.
You got my point? Yes.
Yes.
So these things that make people different, but we cannot observe.
Yes.
And we suppose that is constant over time, it will be considered because of this difference in difference. And to control for my age, education, and all the other things will include the X.
Yes, I understand now the beta. Then if I well understand, it's like when the beta we control for unobservables time invariant, not time variant.
Yes, it's something that you cannot observe, but will not change over time.
Yes, and when we want to control for, when we want to add the observables, we add the X's,
exactly,
the covariates.
So in this case, you are controlling for all the observable characteristics and the unobservable characteristics that do not change over time that may affect your outcome. So you are sure that your treatment, or your estimation for the treatment effect is not biased by these observed characteristics or unobserved characteristics that are in time invariant.
Thank you, Professor.
Other questions? Okay. I don't remember who asked me in the beginning if we would use only, we have to use difference in difference only with time dimension. So this is, this is the most common data set we use for difference in difference that we will control for time dimension. As we said, that some characteristics that cannot be observed and would vary over time. So to allow us to control for this. However, it can be used difference in cross-sectional data by focusing on individuals in different geographical locations. Okay, so if you have cross-section, you still can use difference in difference, but in this case, you will not be focusing on before and after. No, you will be focusing on a given village or geographical location that where it was supposed the program will be implemented, and another one where it's not supposed that the program will be implemented. So if I will talk about takaful, instead of comparing in 2012 and 2019, I have data only in 2019. Assume that not everywhere in Egypt the program is implemented. If we assume that some villages are supposed to be, the program is supposed to be implemented, and in other ones, no. For instance, in the data set we will use for the application today, that the program or the treatment is access to microcredit or benefiting from microcredit program. And the selection we need to focus on, or they focused on villages where the land area is lower than specific, I don't remember, 5 fiddan or something like this. So from the beginning, not everywhere the program is implemented. Some villages or some geographical location, we plan to implement this program. And in another geographical location, the program is not implemented or not intended to be implemented. And instead of focusing on beneficiaries of the program and non-beneficiaries of the program, we'll have targeted and non-targeted individuals, okay? So instead of having before 2000 and after, assume we have this geographical location A and this geographical location B. As a policymaker, from the beginning, I said, okay, A will implement the program, and in B, I will not implement the program, no program, okay? Within A, where I'm supposed to implement the program, I have some individuals who are targeted, who had the criteria that allows me to implement the programs, and the other not. I'll خليهم circles. And in B, the village where I am not planning to implement the program, still I have some individuals who have the characteristics that allow them to benefit from the programs, and the others who have no characteristics allowing them to benefit from the program. So instead of 2012 and 2019, we have A and B, and instead of having a real beneficiaries or real, I mean, participants and non-participants, I will focus on targeted and non-targeted. So even in B, where the program will not be implemented, still some individuals can be targeted by the programs and others are not targeted by the programs. And instead of comparing over time or change over time, I am comparing between the both geographical location. So,
I'm sorry, Racha, just to
yeah,
recap
sure.
on this, to make it clear, you take the first differences that you take are between targeted and untargeted in each of the not targeted and untargeted, between the crosses and the circles in each of the geographical locations. So exactly. in the area that is going to be treated, you take the difference between the targeted and untargeted, and in the area that is not going to be treated, you take the differences between those who should have been targeted because they're not. Am I right?
Exactly.
And
yes.
the others who are not targeted anyways.
Exactly.
And then you take the difference between both areas.
Exactly. As you said it exactly correctly, Nora. So yes, between the X's and the circles in one village, the circle and the crosses in the second village, and compare between both of them. But again, personally, I have never saw an implementation of difference in cross-sectional data. But however, still you can do it if you have. I mean, for takaful, for instance, we cannot do it now because it's implemented for all. I mean, still we are using geographical location for takaful, but most of the villages where the program is really implemented. But still you can do it, and we will see in the example in the empirical data. We'll see now how we can implement it. We'll use the selection criteria for the villages to differentiate between program and non-program villages. And then we'll choose the selection criteria for the individuals to compare between those who targeted and not targeted in the village where the program is implemented, and those who were supposed to be targeted, but the village is not implementing the program, and those who should not be selected at all. So we'll see the difference between both. Questions? Okay, so the last thing I want to tell you about it before I start dealing with the implementation with STATA. As we said last week with PSM, it allows you to match between individuals treated and control individuals based on observable characteristics. And we ignore the fact that we don't have any unobservable characteristics that would affect or would affect your selection into the program. The difference in difference allows you to control for these unobservable characteristics. So the advantage of each one can be used by using both methods together. So I will use the advantage of PSM to match individuals. As Nora said in the beginning, we want to match those observed and those not observed. And then focusing on this matched groups, matched individuals, I will compare their outcomes before and after. So both methods can be used, and this would increase the, it will allow you to reduce more the bias because you are getting the advantage of both methods. And the steps to do it will, as PSM, will match the data, will match the individuals based on their observable characteristics. And I will calculate the p-score, of course, for matching. And then I can use this p-score to compare, to run my regression. As we saw last time, I will use the weighted regression using the p-scores. And the idea is to match individuals and then compare between their outcomes before and after, and not simply compare between outcomes before and after among all individuals. Is it clear? So in the steps, you will first use the PSM to match individuals, and then you will apply difference in difference. And simply is by calculating the p-score, you can calculate the inverted weight as we saw last time, and including in your regression, and still your beta coefficient will be the indicator of your treatment effect on your outcome variable of interest. And you are sure that this not only in general, but focus on individuals that can be matched based on their propensity score or based on their observable characteristics. Questions, comments, anything not clear?
It's clear.
Okay. Some quick comments, general comments about application using STATA before taking a break and start using STATA. Okay, so usually we will use for such analysis panel data. that you are observing different individuals over time to be able to follow them before and after and calculate difference in difference, okay? As we said, of course, the x's will include in our regression are the x's that we can observe. So we need to have x's for individual I in period G, because our panel has these two indices, and this can be any variable that you think would affect your variable, your outcome of interest. So if it's income, if it's women decision power within the household, if it's children nutrition status, all variables that can affect these outcomes, you will include it in your regression. And you have to differentiate between the variables that are time varying, that can change over time, like employment, like income, even place of residence can change over time. And of course, you have some variables that cannot change over time, like for instance, sex. And you, as I said, you have to be sure that there is no data entry errors, and to be sure that these variables that you know that they are not varying over time would not change in your sample between 2012 and 2018. If this is the case, this means that maybe there is time error or any data entry errors. We have two type of data. I think Dr. Chahir talked about it yesterday, but just to refresh your memory, we have what we call long data type, and this long data type, it looks like this. So for each individual, you have many lines based on the number of years you have. So here, for instance, individual 1, we have his or her information, because he is a male, in 80, 81, and 82. You have his income over the years. For individual 2, also you have the data about income for all the years. And you can see that here, if you have 10 individuals, and for each individual you have information for 2 years, you will have 20 lines. And you can see that the variables that are supposed to be time invariant are not supposed to change over time. It's supposed to be the same things over the years, okay? For the wide data, and we'll see that we need to change between wide and long data, we'll see it when we start the application. For each individual, we have only one line. For the variables that we have, that we know that is time invariant, you will have only one column, like sex, for instance. But for the variables that change over years or over time, we will have several columns based on your G. So here we have 3 years. So we'll have 3 columns for income for each year. We have 1 column for each year. And only the variables that are varying over time will have sub-indices by the G variable, okay? These are the 2 types of data, shape, not type, it's panel data at the end, but the shapes are different. We will need to change between wide to long or vice versa. We'll see this using the reshape command in STATA. However, we need to know, when you get the data, you need to know what is your data shape. Is it wide or is it long? Okay? Questions, comments?
Yeah, maybe have a comment.
Yes.
Here, for example, for the data you've shown in the in the previous slide, we have 3 periods, and difference in difference calculate the difference between 2 periods. So is it correct to calculate or to see the difference before and after the implementation of program, and between also 2 periods after the implementation of program? Like yes.
I mean, but what is the point? If, for instance, TACAFL is implemented in 2015. If I compare individuals after 2015 between, for instance, 2017 and 2019, so during this period, or the individual is benefiting from TACAFL or not benefiting from TACAFL. So any change in their outcome will be explained by other variables, not really the treatment.
Yes, okay.
However, I mean, TACAFL is not done yet, but for a lot of programs, you have what we call graduation process. So for instance, a cash transfer program is supposed to be implemented, And after 3 years, you are supposed, as a policymaker, to do a revision of the situation of the individuals to see if they are still eligible for benefiting from the program or not. And if they are not eligible anymore, you have to exclude them from the program. So for instance, I am a woman. Before 2015, I was not, there was no takaful. I was not member of takaful, but my criteria allowed me to be selected to benefit from takaful. From 2015 to 2018, I was benefit from takaful. If the Egyptian government did a revision of the eligibility of the program in 2018, and for any reason I'm not eligible anymore, I don't know, maybe I get benefit from the income and I am able to produce products at home and selling it. One of my children graduated and is working now. Any change in my characteristics that make me not eligible anymore from the implementation of the program. So in this case, you can just compare after and before the program, after the program. And after the implementation of the program, you can compare between those who are continuing benefiting from the program and those who stopped benefiting from the program.
Yeah.
Okay? If there was this graduation, but if there is no graduation, so you cannot really say that any change over these years is due to the program. It's mainly due to the other characteristics, because if she is benefiting all the years, and if not, she is not benefiting of it. I don't know if it's right.
Yeah, it's clear.
Professor.
Yes.
I have a little issue with the cross-sectional difference in difference. Is it possible to re-explain it?
I would prefer to re-explain it using the data. So,
yes.
to be clearer with the data, because we'll have how to select the villages and how to correct the
yes. Thank you.
Okay, so let's take a break for 13 minutes. And
sorry, did you send the data or only the do file? Because I received the do file. I don't know if
my intention was to send you the data. I will check. Did you receive the do file, not the data?
Yeah, I think yes. I don't know if it's the same for others or.
Yes. It's only the do file.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I select wrongly the file. I will send you now the data set, and if we make any change in the do file, I will send you the updated do file. Okay, I will send it to
thank
you. Thank you. And I would like you to open the data, and the first thing I will ask you after the break is what type of data it is, wide or long, just to see if you are.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. See you in 15 minutes. Did you receive the data?
Yes, I've received it.
Okay, perfect. So now you have both the data and do file, and if any changes to do file, I will let you know. Okay, so today we'll use this data set. It's from Pakistan household survey. Sounds 91, 92, and 98, 99. And the data we'll use, the data file is a panel data 91, 98 household. And this data set collects a lot of information about individuals, household characteristics, and the community levels. We have 826 households. I asked you a question before the meeting, before the break. What is the type of this data, wide or long?
Yes, it's a long.
Exactly, it's long data set. So you can see, so for each household, in each we have two lines, one for year 0, which is 92, and one for year 1 for 1998, after the implementation of our program of interest. So the data here is in long format. The main idea here, what we wanted to study, we want to see what is the impact of the microcredit program in Bangladesh on 3 outcomes: borrowing, consumption, and poverty. And the microcredit program in Bangladesh, it has 2 specific programs, one mainly for women and one mainly for men. So we can have in the same household a male participant or a female participant or both, because there are two different programs. And the survey is decomposed, or the geographical decomposition. We have what we call the thanas or sub-districts in Bangladesh. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing correctly. We have 29 thanas, where 24 have households benefiting from the program, and 5 thanas or villages were not targeted from the beginning. So they were not targeted to benefit from this program. From the targeted households, only 60% were able to participate in the program, because we can target the program for individuals, but not everyone benefit from it. And the eligibility criteria for the household or for the individuals is to have to be owner of an area of land higher than 1/2 acre area. And we'll see this in more details when we'll start discussing how to use the difference in the cross-sectional data. Okay, so the NH is the variable that identifies household. We have 2 years, as we said, year 0 and year 1. And one of the things you have to do when you have the data to be sure that specify if it is long or wide and if you have any duplicates or not, is to use the command duplicates. Duplicates report, sorry, what happened? I'm sorry, I don't know why it's doing this. Okay. Duplicates report NH. I'm telling STATA to show me if there are any duplicates in the data based on the identifier NH, because you will see it will be here. I am only using the identifier of the household. We'll see what will be the results if I'm using the identifier of the household in addition to year. I don't know if I did.
Doctor, please, I have a problem with opening the data. The STATA is telling me that this file is not a STATA format.
This is weird. Which
Yeah,
data?
you can. I think you can just change the emplacement of the of the file, not let it in download file. You just change the emplacement, and you can open it, I think.
I'll try now.
Okay. So duplicates report, it shows us for the total number of observations and how many duplicates you have for NH. So as we know that for each household we have 2 lines. So this copy shows you that every household, every identifier NH is duplicated 2 times, which make we have 1652 observations for 826 households. So we have 826 households. Each household is repeated or duplicated twice. And overall, we have 1652 observations. Okay. If I want to check it on using the household identifier and year to be sure that for each observation we have 2 lines because we have 2 years, I will say duplicates report in each year, and you see that it shows you that there is no surplus. Each line has 1 identifier of the household and 1 year, and here shows us that we don't have any duplicates. This is important to understand what is the type of data, so we know that we have long data, and to be sure that it's not simply a repetition, because sometimes in some data surveys you may have an error and you have 2 lines exactly the same values for everything. This means that they are not really 2 different observations, there is only an error. So you need to know the duplicates. Okay, let me see that. Okay. Marina, I'm not sure what is the problem for your for STATA. The data set I sent to you, it's a 13 format, STATA 13. If you have older, maybe this is a problem. If you have older version of STATA, maybe this is a problem. I'm not sure.
I have STATA 12, but this problem wasn't existing yesterday with Dr. Chahir's data. I think he was using 13 too.
So I
I'll
don't
try to
know.
fix it.
Okay. If it's opening for everyone, so this means that not the data set that has a problem.
Okay.
But, check.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Professor.
Yes.
What's the meaning of copies?
Of what? Sorry.
What's the meaning of copies?
Copies is how many.
One.
Yes, so I am asking STATA to see if we use the household identifier and the year as identification of the line, if there is any repetition or any duplication. If one, this means that every household, every combination between the household identifier and the year is repeated one time. This means that I don't have any duplicates. I don't have two lines who have exactly the same household identifier and the same years. So it's the number of times, for instance, here, when I was just asking using the household identifier, I had two as copies because each household identifier is repeated 2 times in 2 lines because of the different years. So just to know, yes, we can say it is like waves or rounds of the surveys because here we have 2, exactly. But what I mean, this is general because sometimes if you have cross-sectional data and you try duplicates and you can get, for instance, 2, this means that you have an error. You have this identifier repeated twice. Okay, so this is why you need to, I mean, here it means rounds or waves, but if you have an error term, you have to be sure that it's not only duplication because of any error and data entry problem. Okay, so as we said, for the program participant, we had a male program and female program. The variable DMNFD is the variable reflecting if the individual is male microcredit participant or not. And DFMFD is the indicator if the household has female participant or not. So if just to see the descriptive statistics, you can see that 12% of the households have a male participant in the microcredit program. For female head, you have 30 or 29% of the households have female participants. So you can see that more households have female participants in the program. As I said, you may have yes. Yes, Sharafuddin. Yes, Sharafuddin.
What's the meaning of add?
We can't hear you. What's the meaning of what?
The meaning of AW equal weight.
So here is an option in STATA that I want to specify because that's, every household sample has a weight. This weight allow me to find to generalize my results at the population level. So when I am using the weights, I can say that 29% of the Bangladesh population household, of the Bangladesh households, have a female participant. If I am not using weights, this means that I am talking only about my sample. So in this case, I would say 29% of my sample has female participants. So the weights, and weight is used a lot in STATA, as we saw also with the PSM, in a lot of commands to be able to generalize your results at the population level and not only specific to your sample. So if I use the interaction between both, let me use this one. So you can find that there are 15% of the Bangladesh households at the population level, because I am using weights, have female participant and the male participant as well. Okay, so this means that in the same household, you may have female participant and male participant. 84% has only male participant, 10% has only female participant, and 90% has no participant at all in male or female program. So this is just to get an idea about the sample or what we are dealing with. Okay, so one basic thing that you can do when you want to compare between two groups is to take the difference in outcomes between treatment and the control groups over the survey rounds. So for instance, if we will focus at the total per capita expenditure as an indicator of outcome, because we said that we are interested in consumption, in poverty. So I will take the total per capita expenditure per year, and we can simply compare between the outcome in these two groups, for those who benefited or those who has a male or female participant and those who don't have. So this is one of the basics. We are not really using here the difference and difference approach. We are just comparing the average outcome between the two groups. So let's see how we'll do it. First, I will create what I will show you now is more not as sophisticated, but I'm just showing you different steps to be able to differentiate between total expenditure in 91 or year 0 and total expenditure in 98 in year 1 without reshaping, simply to keep all the other variables of interest, because I want to compare only the total expenditure per capita. But if you do reshape, you will get the same things. But here, because we have a lot of variables, I don't want to do reshape for now. So I will first create a variable called total expenditure 0, which is equal to total expenditure variable if year is 0. Okay. And then, so let me show to you what this means. So for each household, I created, we have two lines. For each line, we have the total expenditure per capita. I created new variable. I call it expenditure total 0 equals the same value as year 0. So for this variable expenditure 0, we have or missing value if we are in year 1, or an important value which is or a high value or not missing value for the year 0. Okay, this is the first step. Second step, what I will do, I will ask STATA to create a new variable called expenditure total 91 equals the maximum of this variable by NHS household. This yields to the following. If you will see this, what is this variable? So you can see that 91 equals the maximum in these two lines, which will be equal to the variable total expenditure 0. Okay, so as if I'm creating new variable called total expenditure 91 that equal to the value of total expenditure in year 91. And then I will drop the other value to have total expenditure in 98 and total expenditure in 91 to have the two periods in time. So I will keep if year equal 1, and I will rename total expenditure 98, and I will drop total expenditure 0, and you will see what we will get. We have now for each observation one line with for year 98. We have, so for all the other variables, we have the value in year 98, and we have two variables, one the total expenditure in 98 and one total expenditure for 91. So again, these steps allows me to create these two variables without doing reshape and change the whole structure of the data set. I simply wanted to have all the characteristics at year 91, which is year 1, and total expenditure for year 98, which is year 1, and total expenditure per capita for year 91 and year 98. Is it clear?
Professor?
Yes.
Professor?
Yes.
The total expenditures, they are deflated?
Yes, it's real values, but we are not showing here these steps. Okay, I mean, the data is cleaned and prepared for the difference in difference, and I'm not showing all the steps to this. But you have to use the deflated. I don't know if it. You are following? Okay. Okay, so now we'll create the logarithmic form of these two variables. Okay, I will create the difference log expenditure total 98, 91, which is equal to the difference between the log expenditure for 98, log expenditure for 91. Okay, and so now I have this variable showing me the difference between the total expenditure in 98 and total expenditure in 91. which can be simply because of time. Okay, how I will explain now if there is a difference between treated and non-treated groups, or between households who has male participant and those who had no male participant, or those who have female participant and those who have female participant. There are different methods. I will show it to you now. The first method is simply to test the difference between the average total expenditure per capita, the average difference between 98 and 91 for those who had male participant and those who have no female participant, who has no male participant, which is t-test. So simply here I am creating two sample t-tests for two groups, those who have a male participant in the microcredit program, those who don't have a male participant in the microcredit program, and I am testing the difference of the average indifference between the 2 years, 98 and 91. So according to this test, can we conclude that we have significant difference between between average expenditure of male participant and average expenditure, or difference in expenditure between those who have no male participant?
No, there is no difference.
No difference. Any other suggestions than Sharaf said? Are you all following what I'm saying, what I'm doing, or I already lost you? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we're still here.
Okay, so are you following what I did till now, or should I repeat again?
I'm following.
Okay. Okay, so please don't be shy.
Yes,
if
Doctor,
you have any
it's
question.
clear.
Okay, perfect. If you have any question, don't hesitate to just raise your hand or write in the chat box, just to be sure that you are following.
Professor.
Yes.
Professor.
Yes. Sharaf, there's a connection problem. We can't hear you clearly.
For the difference, the coefficient of difference, it will be interpreted like 2%.
No, Sharaf, you have a connection problem. Here we don't have a coefficient. Here simply I calculated the difference of expenditure between the 2 years for the control groups, those who have no male participant, and for the treated groups, those who have male participant. And I want to see if this change or this difference, there is significant difference between both difference or not. If there is significant difference, if the mean for those who are not treated and the mean of those who are treated are significantly different, this means that the being participant in microcredit program would affect your total expenditure per capita. So here I conclude that it is not the case. Let me show it to you if we do it by female. So again, we calculate the difference of total expenditure per capita between the 2 years, 98 and 91. And now I want to compare the average difference between both for those who have female participant and those who have no female participant. So I do the same thing. And what we found, do we have significant difference or we don't have significant difference? And someone else than Sharaf.
I think in this case we have significant difference.
Exactly, Maya. So if a household has a male participant, this would not affect their total expenditure per capita. But if a household has a female participant in microcredit program, this would make a difference in their total expenditure per capita. So it shows you that not only being participant, but the sex of the participant would make a difference between the total expenditure of the treated and non-treated groups. Okay.
Doctor, please, we look at which p-value. There are 3 p-values.
The p-value in the middle tell you that there is no that there are different from 0. If you want to know if it is positive or negative, I mean which group has higher one, you look here. The difference is less than 0, which means that the mean of those who are not treated minus the mean of those who are treated less than 0. And this means that households who have female participant have higher expenditure compared to those who have no participant. and the alternative one is greater than 0.
Okay.
Okay. So first you look if it is different from 0 or not. If it's different from 0, you want to know which one is higher. So you look at the difference less than 0 and difference higher than 0.
Yes, we should start with this kind of analysis before to start difference in difference. Is this inform us of which observable variable to introduce in the model, or what's the?
It's just,
aim?
you know, it's always good to explore the data, to see it in, I mean, if all the simple methods and the difference in difference approach shows you the same results, this is good. So it's just the way to try to see that without including any explanatory variable, without making the difference in difference approach, can we really conclude that on average, those who have female participant have higher than male participant or not? So you can do it or you cannot do it. But I always recommend to, I would say, play with the data, try to fully understand the data, see it from different angle, understand all the variables included in your data to be sure that your results are robust and you have everything clear.
And if I can say, we play with the data according to the literature.
No, I didn't get this point. Can you say it again, please, Maya?
Like if here we are looking if there is significant difference between a participation of male and female, is this according to what we found in the literature? Like I know that there is some studies that found that there is significant difference, and I'm doing it. I'm trying to look at this in our case, or.
So in our case, we want to know if being participant in micro-credit program had a positive or significant or no effect on per capita expenditure, okay? But because we have male program and female program, we want to know
sorry,
if they are the same or not.
I didn't know that it was a different program.
Yes,
one
so
target. Oh, yes, sorry.
No, there are two programs. So in the same household, you can have a male participant and a female participant, or you may have only male participant, or you may have only female participant, or no participant at all. So you want to know if it's the same thing or not. So from this simple comparison of the average difference, you can conclude that if I am in a household and I have female participant in the microcredit program, my total expenditure will be higher. But if I am in a household where I have higher compared to one who has no participant at all. But if I am in a household, I have I have a male participant, there will not be significant difference of my total expenditure compared to the other groups. Okay?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Another thing that you can simply do it is to regress total expenditure per capita on being treated or having a female participant. Okay, even if we know that this is not the correct, this is not the best way to conclude if the program is significant or not, but simply you need to have an idea about your data. So here I regress the difference in total expenditure between the 2 years on a dummy variable, binary variable, equals 1 if there is female participant, 0 otherwise, and we can see that it is significant and positive, which means that having a female participant increase the change in total expenditure per capita. Okay.
Professor.
Yes.
In the regression, we get a positive and significant coefficient, but when we implement the t-test, we obtain a negative value.
No, we obtained the positive value. You obtained that the null hypothesis, the alternative hypothesis says that the difference is different than 0. Okay, and because the difference is less than 0, this means that the average difference of those who are not participant is lower compared to the average difference among the participants, which means that having a female participant increase or have positive impact on your total expenditure. So maybe the difference is negative, but you are comparing the...
But
Yes, go ahead. Yes, Sharfadi.
But the value of difference, it's minus 0.11.
Yes, but okay, this is the difference between the difference in two groups. I mean, you want to, but so this difference, this minus equals the total expenditure of those who are, the difference in total expenditure for those who are not participant minus the difference in total expenditure for those who are participants equal minus 0.1111, which means that this one is higher, has higher value, which means that the increase in total expenditure per capita of the female participant is higher compared to those who have no participant at all, which means that if I have female participant, this has positive impact on my outcome or my total expenditure per capita, right?
Yes, I understand.
So this negative means that those who are benefiting have higher expenditure than those who are not benefiting. This by t-test difference. If I do a regression and it's positive, this means it's the same value, but the sign is positive because here it's not the same thing, it's not difference, it's the coefficient of a binary variable equal 1 if I have female participant and equal 0 if I don't have female participant. So you should know what is this negative sign reflect for. Here is the coefficient, so it's positive, but here is the difference. Is it clear for everyone or not?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Professor,
Yes.
is it possible to re-explain it in French? If
Okay.
it's possible.
Yeah, sure. Let me show you here. Donc, moins 0.11 pour le t-test, c'est la différence entre différence de dépenses, ok, entre la période 98 et 91 pour ceux qui n'ont pas de bénéficiaires du programme, ok. Donc, pour ceux que je peux considérer comme contrôle groupe. Moins, donc tout ça, je vais le mettre en parenthèse, moins la différence entre dépenses entre 98 et 91, mais pour ceux qui ont une femme qui bénéficie de ce programme. Donc, si cette valeur est négative, ce qui veut dire que la différence pour ceux qui bénéficient du programme est plus importante pour ceux qui ne bénéficient pas du programme. Donc, être membre du programme ou participer à ce programme augmente ma dépense. Juste, parce que c'est négatif, ce qui veut dire que le second terme est plus important que le premier terme. Tandis qu'avec le
oui,
coefficient...
d'accord, maintenant j'ai compris.
D'accord, c'est bon. OK, so now, we saw that by t-test simple difference between the change in both years and by simple regression, having a female participant increase my total expenditure per capita, but having a male participant has no significant impact. But still, we cannot really conclude because we have all the business issue we talked about because it's not a random sample. So now we will apply a full difference in difference models as we discussed. So we have to estimate this regression. We will regress our outcome of interest, which is the per capita expenditure for household I at period T. We have alpha as a coefficient. We have DD, I will call it, so this is our beta in our slides. So the beta coefficient in our slides, I will write it here DD, which means the difference in difference impact, the interaction between being treated and the time variable. Then we have small b, which is the coefficient of the treatment status. And we have small d, which is the coefficient of the time dummy. Okay.
I think you mean gamma, right? DD is the...
Yes, B is gamma, D is delta, and the DD is beta. Okay. So again, DD is the coefficient of the interaction. In our model was beta. Small b for the treatment effect is gamma in our slides, and small d, the coefficient of the time dummy, is delta in our slides. Clear? Okay, so I can even write it here. So DD is the beta in slides, and B equal gamma in slides, and D equal delta in slides. Okay. So I will use again, remember that I manipulated my data and I dropped some the observations for 91. So here I will reopen my original data set. I will create again the total expenditure per capita in logarithmic form. So here again, I am opening my long shape data set where I have for each observation, I have 2 lines and I have all the characteristics of the households and total expenditure for year 91, year 0, and year 98. Okay. When we were using the t-test, I manipulated the data in sort of dropping all the values of 91. So now I'm reusing it all again. Okay, now I wanted to create my variables that I will include in my model. Which variables I want to include? I wanted to create TI, the treatment effect, which is equal 0 for everyone in the year 91, and equal 1 in 98 for those who have male or female participant. And I wanted to create the time dummy. Okay, and remember we have as if we have 2 programs, one for male participant and one for female participant. Let me do it for female participant. Okay, so I will do it for female participant to compare all the results together. So I will create a new variable. I will call it dfmmfd1, which equal 1 if my original variable equal 1. So if, just to remind you, if I tabulate this variable, so this variable dfmfd equal 1 if in the household I have female participant, equal 0 if in the household I have no female participant. All right. So I am creating a new variable. I will call it this way, equal 1 if the individual, if the household has a female participant in year 1. So it is my variable T capital I. So if we look at the data set, let me show it to you. How I always like to open the data set and see how it looks like. Okay. So here the household, here's the year 0 and 1, here's a variable of interest. So you can see for this household, we have, this household had been treated in year 1. So in the original variable, it has value 1, and in the created variable also it has a value 1. This household, 12035 had not been treated. It has the value 0 for this variable in both years. So it will be 0 in both years, okay? So I will now create a variable. I will call it dfmfd98 equals the maximum value of this by household. So I am creating a new variable, dfmfd98 equal 1 if the household is treated in year 1 or not. And I will create the interaction term. I will call it dfmdyr multiplied by year equals this dummy variable equals 1 if the household is treated in 98 multiplied by year. This is my interaction term. So again, if I will, there are different ways to create the interaction variables. I'm just showing you one of these ways. So here we have this is a time dummy, which is year. Here's the original variable of interest, which is equal, exactly equal to this one. And here we have a new variable, I call it TI1. So this is the TI1. You remember when Nora asked me, it will always be 1 or 0, even if period 0? And I said, yes, exactly. So if even in 0 year, if I know that this household will be treated in the future, I will call this variable 1. But if this household are not treated, so in year 0 and year 1, this variable equal 0. Okay, so this is our capital T I1 variable. And this is the interaction between both. So I will write it here. So here, this is the treatment group, which is the T I1 in our slides. Clear? Any question? Okay. So
with regard to the tabulate, you tabulated the variable right now without weight, but when you tabulate with weight, the values were different.
exactly.
Yani before it was like 11%, and now it's 44%.
Exactly, because when you tabulate without weights, you will always get, I mean, if there is no difference, it means there's something wrong. Because when you tabulate without weights, it's only at the sample level. So in your 800 households, how many has beneficiaries and how many has not beneficiaries? But when you calculate it with using weights, it means over the whole population of Bangladesh, which I don't know how many they are, what is the number of households benefiting from the program. So having different values is not something wrong. But when you are, I mean, in your analysis on your paper, you have always to deal with the weights, because especially if you want to provide policy recommendations, you need to be sure that your results are at the population, can be generalized as a population level and not only because of your sample.
How do they create the weight? Yani, do they have a census for the whole population to know the weight for female and male?
Yes, so there are not only for female and male, so there are, I mean, this whole, I mean, theoretical framework and literature related to this. So in how the survey itself is selected, how the sample is selected, it should be representative. For instance, based on the female and male distribution in the population, the different age groups, the geographical location. For instance, in Egypt, if I don't know, 60% of the population are in Cairo, in my sample, 60% of my sample should be in Cairo. So it's how in every survey, you will have like a methodological note explaining for you the weights and the selection process of the sample from the population. So if you want to be sure that your results are generalized at the population level, you have to use the weights.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so here I will, so now I created my, we have our time dummy, which is the year 0 and 1. We created our treatment dummy, which is TI1 equal 1 for whole households who had been treated and those who are not being treated. And we created the interaction dummy, okay? So now I will run the regression without any covariates as we did in the beginning in the slides, and let's see what we will get. So I want you to look at these results and tell me what we can conclude from this.
There is a significant impact.
The significant impact of having a female participant in the household, and it's positive or negative?
It's positive. It would increase by 11%.
Exactly. And what is the year reflect? The coefficient of year reflect? And someone else than Sharafuddin? What is the year? What is this coefficient reflect?
Time varying, maybe.
The effect of time on.
Exactly. Exactly, Maya and Nora. It's the effect of time. So simply by moving from year 91 to year 98, total expenditure per capita will increase. So this is the effect of time, the effect of being in 98 compared to 90. If you remember the trends, so without any intervention, without any program, the total expenditure per capita should increase simply because of time. And the coefficient of this variable, which is TI1, is the effect of being treated. But we cannot conclude that it's really significant or not without really looking at the interaction term, because the interaction term takes into consideration the difference in difference, take into consideration the unobservable characteristics that are not variant by time and the observed characteristics. Okay. So if you have such output and you want to conclude if you have significant results or not, or significant impact of having female participant or not, you can see that it is positive and significant. And you notice now that using simple t-test or simple regression or difference in difference, we have the same conclusion, that having female participant increase total expenditure. However, this is the correct one to report, and not the correct, it's the one that take into consideration the biasness and the fact that our sample is not random. Let me show it to you for male. I will just create the variables for male as well and run the same regression for male. You remember we found no significant difference between the average expenditure, change in expenditure for those who have male participant and those who have no male participant. Let's see if it will be the same case. You can see from the interaction term that having a male participant
it's
in the
not
household,
significant.
Exactly, it's not significant. So total expenditure per capita would increase if in the household there is female participant, not if there is a male participant.
Doctor, but here we have the year is significant. This means that the difference happens due to the time variable, or this is not the case?
This means that without any program and without any intervention, moving from 91 to 98 will increase total expenditure for everyone.
Oh. Yeah, regardless the gender of the household. Oh.
No, regardless the fact that they are participant in the program or not.
Oh,
no,
okay.
This is not the gender of the household. If there is someone participating in the program or not. So again, this is the trend or the time the parallel we showed in the beginning. Without any intervention, without anything, without any characteristics, household expenditure should increase over time.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So this is why it makes sense that it's positive and significant. But this other two shows you if some households has male participant, would this increase their expenditure more than the other ones? Yes or no? And it shows you that no.
Okay.
Okay.
So here to judge the program, we only focus on the third coefficient. So we don't see if the coefficient of time is significant or not.
No, you can. I mean, again, it depends on what you want to do. I mean, if I am doing a paper and I want to see what are the determinants of total expenditure and if the program is significant or not, I would also interpret that yes, time has positive significant impact on total expenditure while my program is not, and I would interpret all the coefficients. But if I am working as a consultant for a ministry and the ministry wants me to give them just a short answer if I should continue this program or not, or if this program has significant impact or not, I should not get into all these details about the other variables, and I'll just focus on this variable.
Yeah.
Okay, so it really depends what
Professor.
Yes.
Professor, the year can be interpreted like the macroeconomic situation, for example?
What do you mean by the macroeconomic situation?
Just moving, for example, just moving from T0 to T1, the increase can be attributed, for example, for macroeconomic situation. It's
possible. I mean, it includes everything that in this year compared to the other year. For instance, I mean, I would assume if we do the same analysis before COVID-19 and after COVID-19, maybe in general, with time, our expenditure would not increase because of several things, the macroeconomic situation, because people losing jobs, because a lot of factors of this year, 2021 compared to 2019, it makes that over time, our income is not increasing. So the year include or reflect everything in this year. It's exactly as if you are including a dummy variable for the country. It includes everything related to this country. And one of the things, yes, can be the macroeconomic situation. But again, if we are interested in specific program or, for instance, in specific event like COVID-19, I would focus on the interaction term. Okay. Now let's add some covariates to the analysis. Here I am just saying that you can compare or you can try to see what are the variables that you include in your analysis, and you compare between the average in the treated and the average in non-treated trying to see if there is a difference. And the variables we are including here, we are including the area of land, sex of head, and this is different from the participant. I can live in female-headed household, and I have a male participant in the program, and I can be living in male-headed household and have a female participant in the program. We include the education, and we include as well variables, some variables related to the different expenditure groups. Let me show it to you. What are these variables about? You cannot use weights with so we include as well if the village have access to road all year or not. We include the proportion of village land irrigated, and we include prices of some of the groups in total expenditure. Price of the main expenditure groups or components like rice, wheat, milk, eggs, and oil. Okay, so these are other characteristics or other variables in addition to the households or head characteristics that would affect the total expenditure per capita. And here, as you notice, we are including it at the village level, otherwise there will not be enough variation. So again, you have to think about what are the, like we did in the PSM method, what are the explanatory variables we want to include in our regression that may explain our outcome variable of interest. Okay.
Professor.
Yes.
Professor.
Yes.
Why we generate the log of land, but with this form, one plus land.
Yes, because the area of land is very small.
1 plus land.
Yes. I want to answer. This is because the area of land is very small for some individuals. So we are just because we want to include the log and not to have very small land, we cannot include the log. So we kind of correct for it by adding 1 and like to compare instead of having less than. Let me show to you the value of land itself. So you can see we have from 0.2 acre to 4,600 acre. So there is huge variation. And if we include the land on this very small variation on the ratio, it can be negative. So we correct to have it to compare between 1 plus a percentage. So it's kind of, I don't know how to say it, but just to correct for this, instead of having 0.2 area of land, I will include the log of 1.002. So I know that the value after the 1 means that the higher this value, the higher the area of land. And in this case, I can introduce the log on this form of, on this variable where there is huge heterogeneity of variation. Okay, so it's a way just to correct, to be able to correct for the variation of this variable that varies from 0.2 to more than 4,000. Is it clear?
Yes, it's clear. Thank you.
Okay, in all this, just some descriptive where we are comparing between those who are treated and those who are controlled and the different variables, the different explanatory variables or regressions I'm including. I wanted to compare it between among the different situations, those who have beneficiary in year 0 and year 1, and those who had no beneficiary in year 0 and year 1 for descriptive situations. So you have the do file, you can see the commands. Let me now run the regression. So I will regress the total expenditure per capita on the year dummy, on the treatment binary variable, on the interaction variable, and on the other covariates, which is the sex of head, age, education, land, and all the other variables. When you have...
Sorry, by head, you mean chef de ménage? I don't know.
Oui.
Okay, thank
you. When we include I dot before the variable, I am telling STATA that it is a dummy binary variable. And when I include C dot, I am telling STATA that it is continuous variable. And when I add B, because remember that year is already 0 and 1, B0, so I am asking STATA that 1 will be our control variable, because this binary variable takes values 0 and 1. So I am telling theta that 1 will be our reference group. Same thing for sex of head, because we have, if you look at the sex of head, it takes also 0 if he is female, H is female, 1 if male. So I am telling theta that 1 is my reference. And for all the other variables, I am saying that they are continuous. Okay, not for theta. If the variable has values 1, 2, and 0, 1, and it's continuous, confuse it with the binary. I will run this regression. Oh, I didn't run the land variable. Okay. So here is the same thing. We have first the coefficient of the time dummy. We have the coefficient of the treatment. We have the coefficient of the interaction. Then we have the coefficient of all the other variables. What can we conclude here?
No significant difference.
Education and land has impact on the difference of treatment.
Exactly. On the total expenditure, not the difference in treatment. So what we found that when we control for other explanatory variables like education, age, sex, characteristics of the community where they live, we have no significant effect of being participant in the female program compared to with those who have no participant female. This means that the significant effect we used to see in the beginning was not due to the program. It was due to some observable characteristic that was not included from the beginning. Okay? And this is why this is the correct, this is a more accurate version that you have to use. You have to control for all the other variables that may affect your total expenditure. And you can see that education and the area of land are two significant determinants of total expenditure per capita in Pakistan.
Also, there is milk and egg, I think.
Yes, exactly. The price of milk and the price of egg as well affect the total expenditure per capita. So if you wanted to increase the total expenditure per capita, you may want to focus on increasing the education of the head or to increase the area of land that the head owns. But the program has no significant difference really on the total expenditure per capita.
So the first result is misleading.
Exactly, because in the first result, you are not really controlling for all the other observable characteristics that you can include for. Okay, so here we control for the observable characteristics that we know that may affect the total expenditure per capita and may affect the selection into the program. And we control for the unobservable characteristics that are time invariant and may affect the results. Is it clear? We can do the same thing also for men, but already for men, we know that there is no significant effect. But if I want to know what are the other variables, you can see that education and the area of land are two important determinants of total expenditure per capita in Pakistan, and also milk and egg prices. But these are the two variables that if I am a policymaker and I want to improve the economic situation of the household, I will make sure that the head of the household have high level of education and they have sufficient area of land to be able to gain income, sufficient income, and increase their total expenditure. Questions, comments? Okay. Now let's see if we want to do the analysis, but not over time, but over over area of or geographical location. If we have cross-sectional data. So here I will use a data set. I didn't send it to you. I will send it to you with the presentation. It's only for the year 98. Okay, so I assume I have only cross-sectional data. I don't have time panel data panel data. And here we will apply the difference in difference model on this cross-sectional data. And as we said, instead of comparing years, I will compare between program and non-program villages. If some programs are targeted or are meant to have this program and others not. And I will compare between targeted and non-targeted groups. Okay. So now I need to specify. You remember when we had the time, we had to specify the time binary variable and the treatment binary variable and the interaction between both. Now I will have to create, instead of the time binary variable, I will create village binary variable to differentiate between villages. You remember my drawing, village A, where the program is intended to be implemented, and village B, where the program is not intended to be implemented. Okay. So in our survey, we have the identification not at the it is at the village level, and higher than the village level, we have what I call STATA. I don't know in Pakistan how it's pronounced correctly. So first, I want to see if the village have a unique identifier or not. And we found that for each STATA ID, we have village ID 1, 2, 3, and it is repeated. So it's not unique. If I will show it to you in the data. This is also useful because in a lot of data sets, this is not unique identifier. So you have to create it by yourself. So for instance, all these households are in STATA 1, and in STATA 1 we have village 1, village 2, village 3. Okay, if you move for STATA 2, here you have also village 2, village 3. If you move to STATA 3, you have also village 1, village 2, and village 3. So I cannot say in village 1 are selected. So village 1 in which STATA 1 or 2 or 3. So because the village ID is not unique by village, it's repeated by village, I will create unique identifier for the village where I take into consideration the STATA ID and the village ID. So I will multiply the STATA ID by 10 and add it to the village ID. I will show you how it will look like. So now village ID, STATA ID. So this is my unique identifier. The first number or the first two numbers will show me the STATA ID, and the second one will show me the village ID. So when vil equal 1, 1, this is not 11. This means that I am in village 1 in STATA 1. When it's equal 1, 3, this means that I am in STATA 1, village 3. When it is 8, 1, I know that I am in STATA 8, village 1. And if I am in 1, 2, 3, I know that I am in village 12 and STATA 3. So I have the first two numbers identify the village, and the third number identifies the first two numbers identify the STATA, and the third number identifies the village. So this allows you to have a unique identifier for village, and for a lot of analysis is needed. I create again the total expenditure per capita in logarithmic form. I correct it for the very small area of land to represent it as higher than 1 to be able to use the logarithmic function. And now I want to specify my not my year dummy, but my village dummy, because I know that targeted groups of individuals, of households, are those who have an area of land less than 50 decimals, okay, as area. And I know that in each STATA village, in each village, STATAs who are less than 25 are the ones who are intended for the program. So for all the STATAs from 1 to, I don't know how many there are. So we have from 1 to 29 STATAs ID. And we know from the specific characteristics of the program that for all villages less than 25, have ID less than 25 are the ones who are implemented or where the program will be implemented, and the other ones not. And this may be because of any reason. For instance, if I will assume we are in Egypt, I can say, okay, all villages in Upper Egypt will implement this program, and all the other villages not. And if the Upper Egypt is represented in my survey from 1 to 25, so I will say, okay, these villages are the one who are intended to be to the program to be implemented in. And within each village, the households who have less than 50 decimals as area of land will be considered as the targeted households for the program. So here I will say, I will create a variable, I will call it target. This, instead of treated or not treated, I will call it targeted or not targeted for those whose household land is less than 50. Okay. And for villages who, for STANA's ID that are less than 25, so for villages that are in this STANA ID, I will create a variable, I will call it prog village, and it would be equal 1 if it is a situation. So this variable target is instead of the treatment and non-treatment, and this variable prog village is instead of the year 1 and the year 0. If you remember my drawing, prog village equal 1 will be those on village A and equal 0 those in village B. And for those who, the cross and the circle, the cross will be those who are targeted, who have area of land less than 50 decimals, even if they will not benefit from the program. And the circles will be the ones who have higher area of land. And I will create the interaction between both variables as well. Is it clear? Are you following? Am I losing you, or you are still here?
Doctor, please, I want to ask why we created a unique ID for the STANA and the village, and then we use the STANA ID without the combination.
Okay, because so I created because of other things that descriptive will do it. But I did so. But I wanted to show to you how to create it, because in a lot of situation, in a lot of analysis, you may use it. But here, the identification of the targeted villages is based on the STANA. If it was based on the village, you will need to use a unique identifier.
Okay.
Okay. So here we didn't really want it for the identification, but we will need it for the descriptive, and I wanted to show you how to do it, because it's in a lot of cases it's not unique across the different villages.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I will now run the regression. So we will regress the total expenditure per capita in prog village, which is as if it is a binary variable for year, but because we are in cross section, it will be for the villages targeted, intended to be implemented in the program or not. Target for those who are targeted or not instead of treated or not. The interaction between both, and the characteristics of the other characteristics we used. And this is at the in year 91 only. And remember, as we said last week, we have to use the cluster because we are using some variables at the village level. And here I am clustering at the village level because of all these variables related to the prices of eggs, milks, and all the other items of expenditure. If I will run this, so what can we conclude here? What can we conclude?
The program has no impact.
Exactly. So we conclude again that the program has no significant impact on total expenditure per capita, even if we are talking at a cross-sectional level. And again, the two variables that are always significant are the education level and the area of land, which shows that these are the two important determinants of total expenditure per capita in Pakistan using this survey. Okay. And I want to mention also here we are using also the weights to be able to generalize the results. The last thing I want to show you what we can do if we will use how we can use the difference in difference and PSM in the same time. So as we said, we will first match between individuals who are benefiting and those who are not benefiting from the program based on their observable characteristics, and then we will apply the difference in difference, which will allow me to compare the difference in the outcome between the treated and the difference in outcome between the control. But this treated and control, I know that they are matched together. So I will use again the data set where I have panel data, because now I want to return back to the time dimension. These are my variables of interest, the same as we created. Again, I am creating here because I am not saving it. And okay, I will keep the data at year 91, the characteristics of year 91. So I am doing the match, this is really important, based on the initial characteristics in 91, not in 98. So I will first match between the two groups using the initial characteristics of these two groups before the implementation of the program in the year 0, and then I will do the difference in difference. So here I am using another command, the one I told you about last time, p-score, to create the propensity score matching. Okay, and I will focus on those who are on the common support area. So those who are on the common support area, I am sure that they will have match. They will have a match. And you can see that here also I am using the closest neighbor, and I am using, I forgot its name. The maximum value is the radius or the maximum value 0.001. So I will keep individuals who I am sure that they have a counterpart, who I can match with a counterpart who is not treated. Okay, and all what I need from this analysis, I want to keep the score. So I match between the individuals, but I want to keep only the score because, as we saw last time, we will use the score to construct a weight that I will use it in my analysis. So I will keep for each household that I'm sure who has a common a counterpart with whom I can match, and the score. So if I will show it to you, here I have my households of interest that I know that I can match and their corresponding propensity score. Okay, so I use the data at year 90. I matched individuals together based on their observed characteristics. I create the score for each observation, and I keep only those who can be matched together. Now I want to merge it again with those who, with all the characteristics for 91 and 98, to be able to implement the difference in difference methods on those households who are matched based on the PSM method. So I will merge again the data file I construct with the original data. I see that I have only 14 observations who are in both files, the one I created with the p-score and the one original one. This means that this 138 observations were not on the common support area. There were no match for them. So I will exclude them from my analysis. I will keep only if merge equals 3, and I will create again all my variable of interest. I have my binary variable for year. I create my variable for the being treated or not in 98. I created the interaction, and sorry, I created the interaction, and the other thing I will create again, I will create the IPTW, the inverse weight, if you remember it. So the inverse weight is this one. You remember, is the fact of being treated divided by your estimated p-score plus 1 minus being treated or not divided by 1 minus p-score. And we said if I am treated, it will be 1 over the p-score. And if I am not treated, it will be 1 over 1 minus p-score. You remember we give high weight for those who were not supposed to be selected but are selected. And we'll give high weight for those who were supposed to be selected but are not selected. And because here I have the weight of my sample, I have to multiply the IPTW, the inverse propensity score I created, with the weight of my sample. So here I am correcting for, I'm taking into consideration the sampling weight. So I am correcting and working at the population level. And in the same time, I am correcting for the matching propensity score by multiplying both weights together. And now I have a weight called the T weight that takes into consideration the sampling weight and the propensity score inverse weight. Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and the last thing, I will run again my regression as we saw it using the difference in difference method. and I will specify the weight T weight. So I am telling STATA, you will run this regression. The coefficient I will have is difference in difference. However, this regression take into consideration the matching between the control and the treated groups, and take into consideration the sampling weight. Let me do it. Okay, this is for male. Oh, sorry, I didn't find this. This is for male. And you can see that here is still significant. So the expenditure will increase anyway over time, but we can see that again, having a male participant will not really affect the total expenditure per capita. And the two variables that are still significant is the education and the area of land.
Sorry,
yes,
I'm a little bit lost. Why do we include observable characteristics, since we use them to match between treated and non-treated? What's the interest of doing match and then doing difference in difference? Since I don't know if I'm clear.
Yes. So in fact, when you do that, when you do the difference in difference, you are comparing between individuals who had been treated and those who are not being treated, but you are not sure that these are equal matches. So for instance, if you and myself, we are both in the same country, I am treated and you are not treated, okay? So you are using difference in difference. You are comparing the difference in my outcome before and after, and the difference in your outcome before and after. However, we are not sure that both of us are equal match. We are not
so
sure.
I want to compare what is it comparable.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay,
so
okay,
first you do the comparable. You are doing the PSM to match, to be sure that these individuals should be compared together. So you are sure that you control for the observed characteristics. And in addition, you will use the difference in difference, so you can control for the unobserved characteristics that are not varying over time.
Yes, thank you.
So this is the advantage of taking both methods into consideration. And there is very interesting paper using these two methods to control for the impact of different programs of heating and the different equipments or programs for heat, like boiler or for instance having a cavity wall or insulation, and what is its impact on the environment. I will send it to you. And they use both methods, PSM and difference in difference, and this make you use the advantage of both methods to be sure that you are controlling as much as you can for any unobservables that can create bias in your estimate. And you are sure that when you conclude that this program has impact or has no impact, you have been controlled of the fact that the sample was not randomized from the beginning.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, any questions, comments, feedback on this topic or in general? Okay.
Professor.
Yes.
Please, I also have a little ambiguity for the first regression for the negative impact 0.11.
For the first method, why it was negative and the other one was positive?
Yes.
Okay. Let me say it without numbers. If you have A minus B negative, okay, this means what? That if you have a value A minus a value B negative, this means that A is lower than B. Exactly? Correct?
Yes.
Okay. If I am telling you that A is the expenditure of household not benefiting from my program, and B is a household who is benefiting of the program. So you can say that when I am benefiting from the program, my total expenditure is higher compared to a household who is not benefiting from the program. Right?
Right.
So this program has a positive or negative impact on the total expenditure?
For treated, positive impact.
No. Forget our example. I am telling you now, A and B are total expenditure for two groups, and A minus B is negative. So you can say that A is lower than B. What does it mean that A is lower than B? That the expenditure for A is lower than the expenditure for B. Okay?
Yes.
And A are a group of households who benefit of any program, of a specific program, and B is the total expenditure of group benefiting from this same program. So if those who don't benefit from the program have lower expenditure compared to those who benefit from the program, this means that the program has positive or negative impact?
Positive.
Positive. So we can conclude that the program has positive impact. So here, the first thing we did, we compared between A and B. I compared between the average value of total expenditure of group A and average total expenditure of group B, and it was negative, showing that those who benefit have higher total expenditure. But in the second method we used, we regress the total expenditure on a binary variable equals 1 if the individual is benefiting from the program and is positive, which means that the program has positive impact. So there is no contradiction. The first one is negative because I am comparing between the total expenditure and I have those who benefit higher than those who don't benefit. But in the second method, I am using a coefficient. So if the impact is positive, the coefficient should be positive. So there is no contradiction between the two methods. It's just explaining the same thing from two different perspectives.
Yes. For example, if the B it's higher, A it's higher than B, then the program has negative impact.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. So if there is no more question, so we are done with this interesting. I hope it's interesting from your point of view. We have Dr. Chahir with us. Hi, Dr. Chahir.
Hi, Dr. Racha.
Hi.
So you finished the difference, I assume?
Yes, we finished.
Great. So after these 4 short sessions over 2 weeks, we were very happy to have you. Just a couple of things that I mentioned yesterday, but I would like to clarify them today. So as soon as we finish the training, you will receive a link from Ramaj with the survey. So please tell us your feedback on everything and negative before positive in order to improve the training. In theory, all these trainings have to be done in person, but unfortunately we can't. So that's why they are very intensive, very short sessions of 3 hours over 4 days. So that's one. 2, you will receive also all the material, including the data sets, the do files, the papers, between tonight and tomorrow morning. One final thing, as I said yesterday, you have also the opportunity to publish a paper as a working paper. So please, after the training, if you have any idea, prepare a proposal of 2 pages with 3 main sections, an introduction and a background with your research question, then the methodology that you adopt, that you will adopt in your paper, and what are the policy implications. Send this proposal to Ramaj. You will get a feedback after that, and then you will have between 4 and 6 months to develop the paper. After that, it will go through the review process of ERF, and it will be published in the working paper series, and then you have the liberty to publish it in a journal if you wish. Then you have our emails, Dr. Racha and mine. Don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions. I think that's it. And as usual, in general, at the end of the training, we take a collective picture. In general, it's done in the sunny roof of ERF, but we'll have to take a screenshot now. So if possible, please open your cameras and we'll have a collective group photo.
So just I want to say, Dr. Chahir, thank you for clarifying the working paper issue, because I was asked in the beginning, but I didn't know that that they can do it without a specific call. So yeah, because I said that there should be a call from ERF to apply to have a paper as ERF working paper, but also you have this opportunity to do it just by being by participating in this training. So take benefit of this opportunity. And but again, I highly recommend to follow the ERF website and subscribe in the newsletter to follow all the information regarding any other calls or any other trainings. I hope these 4 days were useful and you'll be able to use it for your research or your PhD. And as Dr. Chahir said, please give us your feedback, negative before the positive. It allows us to improve the training. And if you have any question, don't hesitate to send us emails.